4th special meeting. We all please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Laura, would you do a roll call, please?
Kevin Scramlin.
Here.
Janelle Keller. Here. Teresa Bills. Here. Jim Christopher.
Here.
Keith Wiederhold.
Here.
All right, approval of the agenda, including changes. The only change I have is before we do public comment, I have a statement I want to read. So if you could add that on. Is there any other changes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda with the change as submitted by the supervisor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Before we get going, I do have a statement I wanted to read to everybody. Good evening, and thank all of you for making time to be here tonight, and I mean that sincerely. The topic before us is the proposed option of township-owned land to Vesper Energy for the construction of a battery energy storage system commonly known as a BESS. Before we get into the details of it, I want to speak directly to the residents of Groveland Township and explain how we arrived at this point. In mid-2024, we first learned that Vesper Energy was interested in building a BESS in our community. The news came as a surprise and sparked a significant discussion throughout the township. At the same time, I was elected township supervisor and took office in November of '24. Since then, there hasn't been a single day when the impact of BESS on our community hasn't been my top priority. I've struggled with the question of what is right. After much reflection, I concluded that moving Vesper to undeveloped township-owned land on Grange Hall Road and moving the BESS there is the best option available for us. Let me explain why. The original proposed site was located in the far southwestern corner of the township near where Tucker Road splits off of East Holly Road. This site was selected without our input and is located close to many homes. If built there, the potential for impact on surrounding residents and more importantly, Holly High School could be significant. By contrast, the new site on land that we own gives us a measure of control we didn't previously have. It's located in a less residential area, and if the project proceeds as envisioned, the visual impact will be minimal. Now I want to address what may be a more important point, why the township is not attempting to block the BESS project outright. In 2023, Governor Whitmer signed Public Act 233 into law. This legislation strips local government of zoning authority for renewable energy projects, including BESS facilities. It was designed specifically to fast-track projects like this and limit local input. I believe this law is wrong, and I'm frustrated that our governor and the Democratic majority in Lansing pushed it through. But the law is clear, and it severely limits what we can do. Our only legal options to oppose this project would be a costly court battle or an appeal to Michigan Public Service Commission. Litigation could cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars, and an appeal to the Service Commission would likely fail. All three service commissioners were appointed by Governor Whitmer and have a background aligned with clean energy development. Given that reality, investing years of time and substantial taxpayer funds in a losing fight would be irresponsible. Some of you may say, you can't know for sure that we lose, and that is true. But I can't base decisions on hypotheticals. That would take years to play out, while the project moves forward anyway. I can only go by the facts that are in front of me. It would be easier for me to stand in front of you and tell you that we should fight this, but I cannot do that in good conscience. To do so would give you false hope, and that's not leadership. Instead, I'm focused on making the best out of a bad situation. I hope you understand that. I love this community. I was born and raised here. My family's been here since 1910. I'm sorry. I would never support something that I believe would harm my family, my neighbors, or this township. Since taking office, I've worked nonstop to minimize this project's impact on our community. I've met with fire safety experts and spoken at length with our own township fire chief. I've had ongoing discussions with commissioners, neighboring township supervisors, consultants, and our state representatives. Most importantly, I've had frequent conversations with Vesper Energy to make sure they understand just how concerned we are. To their credit, Vesper has acknowledged our concerns and they've worked with me so that we could get to this point. They've expressed a commitment to working closely with local leadership and residents to mitigate risk. They've also committed to giving back to this community with some fire equipment and other forms of local support. Both Vesper and I agree that collaboration is far more productive than conflict on a project of this scale. Where do we go from here? Tonight we discussed the proposed option of township-owned property to Vesper. In order for the site to be moved from where it is currently to where we'd like it to be, a decision had to be made by August 5th. And that goes to their siting with the ITC lines of MISO. It's a deadline for them to move sites. And that's the reason for the rush on this meeting tonight. If the motion passes, then we move to the next steps throughout the entire process, whatever that looks like. Your safety is my utmost priority. And I mean that. I would like to take one more thing. I apologize to the residents that this is rushed. I apologize to this board that this is rushed. There's been a lot of people that have put in a lot of work to make this thing happen tonight. I wish there had been more time for all of us. So I do want to say I apologize for it being rushed. With that, we will move on to public comment. There was a copy of the rules over there. Each of you will have 3 minutes. Whoever would like to speak, please stand up and state your name and address so Laura can put you on record when I call you. There will be no sharing time. You will be on a timer. And I just ask that everybody be respectful. We are all neighbors here. So with that, I will open public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Right here, go ahead, man.
My question, I saw in the newspaper that, it looked like this was gonna be on a smaller plot of land, 40 acres. Was that it? And like the 12 acres were gonna be the best, and then there was like 5 acres of batteries. Is this a smaller project than what was originally proposed?
I'm not supposed to answer a bunch of questions. It's the same project that was proposed.
Okay, just a different location, okay.
Go ahead.
Christine Nettie, for a peace of mind for people in the room, this is not opening the door to give them 2 projects, correct?
Correct. Carrie?
Yeah, I'll go. Carrie Smith, Holland, Michigan, Groveland Township. And once I'm here again to appeal to the board not to allow our township to become a willing participant of the best to be built in our community. An energy storage facility of this size, 300 megawatts, desired to be built by them, will be the largest in our state and even bigger than the one being built by DTE in Trenton. I checked it today. They're currently at 220 megawatts of electricity, so it's not even just so much whether or not they're allowed to build, it is their size and the danger. The Trenton site will store electricity during times of excess generation, and they'll distribute the power to customers when they need it, reducing strain on the grid as well as other benefits to the community. But Vesper's expressed that they will store the energy to sell to the highest bidder, whether that be Amazon, Walmart, or even an out-of-state bidder, with no benefit of supplying energy to our community, but only as an agenda to make money. Even when our power's out, we will not be supplied. A BESS in Groveland Township does not help to reduce any price spikes or supply any shortfalls to our community unless we will be the highest bidder to Woodson Energy. And my question is that a reality? Woodson has put in writing that their project could be operational as soon as 2029. They have that in writing currently on a website that I'm happy to provide. Will it? They're claiming that they'll provide taxpayers, school districts, hospitals, local government with reliable economic benefits for years to come. I'd like to see that in writing, and I'd like to know if the board here has been given that. I remember them asking Bob DePalma asking them for a written plan, and I have yet to see that, but it might be because of the navigation on this website, I'm not sure. Cause I'm not a DOD. But, I wanna know how will they accomplish it? Vesper, i.e. Woodson Energy, claims that they're gonna bring in millions of dollars to the community, yes, millions, by supporting schools and infrastructure and local government. I know that they've made donations to Christmas baskets and the fire department and to other areas throughout our community and joined the Holly Area Chamber of Commerce, but I'd like to see something in writing as to how they're gonna provide these millions. My other question is, are these true or are they empty promises? And that's basically where I am. And in the public meeting holding here, if Vesper will admit, or I'm sorry, in a prior public meeting, a Vesper employee admitted that the batteries are manufactured in China, but they have on their site that it's American made. And I just think we need clarification of what the truth is here, two-handed.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I will close public comment. All right, we'll close public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I thought this was gonna be more of an informational type of thing. And I'm a little disappointed in that. Is there some way that we can submit questions and get answers and, because I know no more than when I came here.
Sure, we're gonna go through it as soon as the board gets to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else?
Can we have more comment after the board goes through it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, I will close public comment at this time. All right, getting into the discussion on the lease. Will, would you like to walk them through a little bit of this?
Sure. So before the board, and I realize that the current version of the proposed option agreement and the various exhibits, including the proposed form of ground lease, you only received the current revised version from Vesper / Woodson Energy a couple hours ago. So I suspect you've not had a chance to thoroughly go through the document. But for the most part, the essence of both the option and the lease, the ground lease, is the same.
Could you repeat what you just said?
The essence of both the option agreement and the ground lease that you've had copies of is essentially the same, except for some.
This is the first time we've seen anything, so I just don't know what the difference is.
Oh, okay, well, I thought maybe you had some prior versions, all right, well then, what you've got in front of you has been, I think, improved from the language that was initially proposed by Woodson. They have, the rental terms, well, let's start with the option. So the option is a 5-year period where Woodson Vesper has the opportunity to elect to engage in a ground lease with the township for up to 40 years. If they don't elect to trigger the ground lease option, then the option fails, but I don't think that's gonna happen. They've already invested quite a lot of money in researching this community, the installation of a project here in Groveland Township, whether it's at the current site that they've got under contract or if it gets moved to the township property. So I think it's a fair assumption that they're gonna elect at some point during that option period to sign up a ground lease with the township. I think that's gonna happen. So But during the option period, they've got to get through what I think is really an existential issue, and that being the existing mining and reclamation agreement that Groveland Township currently has with Bedrock Express to mine that property in some location or the entirety of it through the end of the term of that reclamation agreement, which ends in December 31 of 2035. And this is a 42-page reclamation agreement, which I have not spoken with the principal of Bedrock nor its lawyer yet to explore what interests they have still in the reclamation agreement, and where exactly on the property, the 40 acres, or actually 37.42 acres, that is the subject of their rights in the agreement. But Vesper Woodson knows this, and they know that there's a contractual right to this property that would certainly go for the duration of the option time and potentially into their ground lease. So there has to be a resolution of the interests of Bedrock Express in this property during the option period to figure out what's going to happen. And I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. I know that Mr. Supervisor, you've had some discussions with both Mr. Bass, the principal of Bedrock, and so you probably have a better idea than I do about what his inclinations are. But they're complicated, and so that's a fundamental concern, right? That I think if the township is interested in relocating this project from its current site to the township property, this mining reclamation agreement has to be addressed and resolved. And hopefully we can get there. And there's going to be some, I think, negotiations between township and Mr. Bass about how that's going to happen. And so, but tonight I can't speculate on what that might look like. So that's for the option period, that is what I think is the biggest issue that needs to get bridged. The rest of the document that is before the board is terms and conditions that are pretty typical to exercising rights and interests in real property and the ability to use that real property for a specific purpose. We revised the initial draft to eliminate references to solar and wind and focus only on the BESS system, and we cleaned up the language. And so unless, well, you haven't really had a chance to look through any of the details, so I suspect you've got no questions. But if you do, I can go through them with you. But suffice to say that the option agreement is pretty standard. And really the only, in the option agreement, it does preserve to them an opportunity to purchase within the lease period. So if they exercise the option, if we get past the mining reclamation issue, they'll then have a ground lease interest for 40 years in the township property. At some point during that period of time, they have the right to trigger a right of first refusal if somebody else comes in and tries to buy the township property. The township has to provide to Woodson and Vesper an opportunity to purchase the property at the same terms and conditions, understanding that there's a lease on it, and that's not a big deal. I suspect you're not going to get any people trying to buy the property during the lease term, but if you do, they've got a right of first refusal. And that's really the only salient issues for the option. And an exhibit to the option is the ground lease. Now, the ground lease is really the more important component of this contract. And what it provides is, as I said, up to 40 years for the lease term for them to install their best project on this site at a location to be determined. They've got 37.45 acres to work with. Somewhere on that property is gonna be the actual installation of their lithium-ion battery storage units. And on that, so that's gonna be one footprint. There's also gonna be another area where, which is called the Switchyard property. And the Switchyard property is a separate 10-acre parcel, which Woodson, Vesper, will purchase from the township, and then deed to the utility company for purposes of its connection to the utility lines. So, but again, that's all gonna be captured inside the 37.45 acre township property. And the terms of that purchase of that 10 acres is to be determined. We haven't decided the value of that yet, so that's gonna happen sometime in the future. We had discussed the possibility of negotiating in the terms of this ground lease, a provision whereby we, the township, had an opportunity to terminate the agreement if we could not otherwise reach a WIO. Because, well, you know, we spent a lot of time and effort in negotiating the workable, incompatible ordinance in contemplation of the other location to avoid the imposition of a CREO, or worst case scenario, they just throw their hands up and go straight to the MPSC and take their chances with the state to locate their project on township, on the land that they currently have under contract, with very minimal township supervision. So, as we've all talked about before, the WIO is the opportunity by statute under the Act 233 for the township to negotiate a lot more regulatory oversight and conditions that they would not otherwise have under state law. But if there's an opportunity to negotiate with the developer under this WIO, would be preferable to the township. And so that the last iteration of that WIO has been sent to Vesper again for review and consideration. And in the current draft of the ground lease, there's language that Vesper acknowledges that it will work in good faith with the township towards the creation and negotiation of a WIO. They know that we're motivated to work in good faith towards that, and I think they are too. We've got a representative of Vesper here today, so if I'm saying something incorrect, you can correct me, but I think it's to their benefit to work in a community where they're gonna potentially be a long-term corporate presence, to establish a good relationship. And I don't think that what Vesper wants to take the risk of and delay of working with the MPSC towards an arrangement that maybe they don't need and they don't want. And so it's preferable to Vesper to achieve a WIO if they can. And I think they're motivated to do that, because they were, when I was on the last version of the WIO that I saw, I know that Vesper was prepared to accept that. It was just the township that decided not to approve it. So, presuming nothing has changed from their analysis of the WIO from the property they've got under contract to the township property, I don't think it's gonna be a big bridge to get a WIO. So anyway, we could not put into the ground lease, the proposed ground lease, a provision that the township had the ability to terminate the lease if we couldn't otherwise reach a WIO. And that was not really so much for the ground lease, but that was for the option. So for both the ground lease and the option, we're not gonna have that condition, other than working in good faith, which is, I think, not an unreasonable clause. The rest of the provisions, as the board will see, the basic terms and conditions are outlined. It talks about the rent, which was negotiated some time ago, and it calls for $4,000 per acre per year. So do the math, 4,000 times 37.42. And with certain upticks throughout the duration of the lease. There are no liens. The only tenant issue is the Bedrock Express and their mining reclamation, but that'll be resolved by the time we get to the lease. If we haven't worked out the resolution of Barry Bass's interests during the option period, we're not gonna even have a lease because they're not gonna take this property. And so the rest of the document, it's been revised to recognize that it's only gonna be dealing with the best systems. There's a lot of language in there that talks about the mortgagee interests. These kinds of projects are funded by, I think, multiple lenders that have very specific language they need to see, and not a lot of room to negotiate outside those guardrails because the lenders' lawyers just won't let that happen. So the Vesper attorney was very accommodating in making some changes that I thought were appropriate, but he expressed a concern that he just has limited discretion, and I believe him. So a lot of the provisions for, in the event of a default of Vesper or Woodson, and a lender has to take control, there's provisions for assignments and interests, and any assignee will step into the shoes and the obligations of the lessee of Vesper if that happens. Obviously, you get a little nervous when you don't know who that assignee might be now, and maybe 20 years in the future, if Vesper, something happens to that company, or Woodson, that's a bridge we'll cross when we get to it. But I think there's provisions that are sufficiently addressed in the proposed lease that that address that as best as we can expect to get now. There's insurance requirements. We've successfully eliminated any requirement that the township indemnify them for any claims or other actions. The fact that this is a municipality-owned property is unique. The first version of these documents were understandably all loaded up with references to private ownership, and so what would happen in that context. And so the fact that this is a municipality, township, we were able to strip out a lot of the requirements that a private landowner would otherwise have to provide to Vesper, and the lawyer for Vesper acknowledged, they're not gonna hold us to that. So that was a small win. Other than that, there's restoration. At the end of the term, or for any reason that the term is terminated sooner than 40 years, and there's and the property having been used either through the entire term or some lesser amount of years, they have 12 months to restore the property to the condition it is now, generally. And the security required for that removal process it doesn't get reviewed until the 10th anniversary of the ground lease. In other words, for the first 10 years, the presumption is the value of the equipment that they install will have enough value to some foreclosing entity if they have to seize it and sell it, at least Vesper takes it off, to perform the restoration necessary to put the property back to how it is right now. After 10 years, and on every 5 years after the first 10th year anniversary, there's provisions for reviewing whether or not there needs to be security, like bonding, or other provisions where they'll set aside monies necessary to reclaim the property appropriately. It's a little fuzzy how that works, but you can read, this is on section 18.3, and you'll see that there's provisions for the security, but also they may upgrade their improvements. They're concerned about getting their improvements understandably off the property because there may be value to that to them, and the township doesn't want those things on the site afterwards. So I believe the attorney when he says, look, they're more interested in making sure what they put on this land gets taken off the land when they're no longer using the property, and the township doesn't necessarily have to worry about it being abandoned and then us incurring the expense of removing this equipment at our expense. I don't think that's gonna be a realistic risk. Otherwise, there's really just general provisions that appear in most commercial ground leases, the same right of first refusal. This utility switchyard option, like I mentioned earlier, is something that is to be determined. We don't know yet what the purchase price is gonna be. They know it's gonna be 10 acres somewhere on the township property, but those are just moving pieces on the chessboard right now, and they don't know where that's gonna be, and I don't know that it really matters, again, other than the interests of Bedrock. And I think that's gonna be, assuming we get past that, that may be an opportunity to learn now where they're gonna want their units installed in their switchyard option exercised at maybe some portion of the property, and the rest of it may be available to Bedrock to continue mining if that otherwise won't interfere with their uses. I don't know that. I don't know the details yet, but that's a possibility. And there's some other just basic confidentiality issues and other things that are, again, nothing that's terribly unusual to any typical ground lease, but again, you're not gonna have a chance to look at it in detail before your vote tonight.
Well, where did we end up at with the community agreements? Is that going to be in the WIO then?
Yeah, we did, they removed that was a proposal to be included, well, initially in the option, and that was removed as a recital from the option, and it was also inserted as part of the background recitals for the lease, and similarly that was removed, but that will be a contract provision independent with the township that I don't know that it was actually in the version that we got today at 4:30 was plugged in anywhere, so that's a good catch, Kevin. But I know that that's something that they're committed to perform on.
I believe it was Carrie asked about the money. Yeah, right, what part?
That's all you're gonna have.
What we agreed to on community money is, once this thing is operating, the township itself, we will receive $100,000 a year from Vesper. We will also receive another $150,000 that, we're probably, I should say probably, the plan is, we would start at that point a foundation, called the Groveland Foundation, and it would be a 5-member board, not just 5-member board, but whatever 5 people were on that board. And from that, they can disperse that money, and it can go to schools, it can go to, senior center, BGYA, Holly Youth, Little League, whatever, nonprofits. So there'd be another $150,000 there, a year to put into the community. The other thing I did wanna tell you guys when we talk about money is taxes. Our assessor worked up what the taxes would be on the project if they built it today, which we all know it's probably gonna cost more when it comes to that. But based on today's number, the township, we would receive $118,507. The fire department would receive $434,000. Holly Schools would receive $1,055,000 a year in taxes.
No questions, but I do have a comment to everybody here. It's gonna parrot a little bit of these two gentlemen, but for emphasis, this is a crummy thing that we're faced with, and we have to make the best out of this. As one of the trustees, and I have a fiduciary responsibility to the township, I have been involved in some of the discussions, I have seen the red line beliefs. I truly believe this is the best of a crummy situation. The site itself is, in my own language, a little bit apocalyptic. I'm not sure what it could possibly be used for. God forbid we have to circle back and fight someone who wants to invest and make this into a landfill. There's another benefit of this site, assuming it gets developed. It is in very, very close proximity to our 2 emergency components. The MABUS facility and our new fire station. That's a big benefit to me. The location of it takes away a lot of the bad components to the community in that immediate proximity. Let me say it a little bit differently, it wasn't real articulate. For many of us, our biggest investment is the equity on our homes. People on the original site were gonna suffer greatly with all manner of confusion, all manner of angst, and very likely a diminishment of their home value. That's probably gonna happen to some of the folks in this new location, but not to the degree. And in part, that's why I support this, as well as the other things that I've said. Again, being repetitive, in my career, I've seen a number of these kind of boilerplate, with the exceptions that Will has talked about. I've met this gentleman a few times before, as well as the other characters, and I mean that with a little bit of humor, of Vesper, and I do truly believe they're negotiating in good faith. And they too realize it's not the best thing, it's their job. And that's all I really have to say.
I got some questions, sure. Okay, so, these are in no particular order, but please tell me, what is the difference between an option and a ground lease? It may sound obvious to some people, but it is not obvious to me. And since I'm just getting these, I don't have time to read them thoroughly.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So an option is, let's start with that. It's just what it says. It's an option that's available that the township is giving to Vesper. They've got an option that they don't have to take, but if they want to take, they have an option to ground lease the property. So for the next 5 years, they have the right, and they're paying for that right. They're paying for a 5-year period Year one, the option fee, again, they're paying for the right to preserve to themselves the right to ground lease for 40 years, the township property. For the first year of their option, they're paying $40,000. If they haven't made a decision by year one, year two, it's $50,000. If they haven't made a decision then to exercise their option, year three, it's another $50,000. Year four, 50, year five, 50. They don't exercise their option, year five it goes away and they're gonna leave. By all intents and purposes, it appears sometime between year one and year five, they're gonna make a decision, we wanna lease your property. So the option is, it's a contract between the township and Vesper that we're giving them the option, should they wanna take it, they don't have to, but if they wanna take it, they can lease our land. Now, if they elect to lease, then that pivots everything to now ground lease. And we've determined the terms and conditions of the ground lease. And that's not selling them the property, we're leasing them the property. So the township will still own the title to the land, subject to 40-year lease. Unless they leave early, which I doubt that's gonna happen. But if it does, then the township recovers title to the property and the property after all the improvements are removed. So the lease is the user's, Vesper's right to use the land and improve the land with these lithium-ion battery storage systems for 40 years. They're gonna borrow money from lenders to purchase the necessary equipment and or material to install those systems. And they're investing a lot of money to do all that, borrowing a lot of money, billions of dollars to do all that, and then reaching contracts on their own with utility companies to link up and provide utility energy to contracts that they reach, that the township has no involvement in those. So that's the distinction between an option and a lease.
Okay, that makes sense. So, from what I've read, and what I've learned about lithium-ion batteries, is they have a usable life of approximately 5 to 10 years, and maybe 15. Now, I'm going by what I think I heard you say, Will, that in the first 10 years, their equipment, what they put out there, should cover the cost of restoring the land to its original, if something should happen. And if their equipment is depreciating, and is there something in this lease about, because here's my thought, and I know you're saying you think it's highly unlikely that they're going to leave, but they could put all this out there, and if they negotiate with DTE or consumers or whatever they do in the energy world, and Vesper is no longer the owner of this because they've just traded their tax credits and renewable energy, whatever, with one of these power companies. It's our land, we leased it to them, now it's our equipment, or is it the DTE's equipment? Like, how do we know that we aren't gonna get stuck with taking care of decommissioning costs on a parcel that we own? How do we know that?
Right, well, good question again. So, getting to your initial comment about the shelf life of these.
Yeah.
I have no idea, and Mr. Combs may, am I getting it right? Okay, may be able to comment more on that than I can, but these are expensive pieces of equipment and installed, I think, without expectation that they're gonna lose their viability anytime soon. But however long they last and however long they might get replaced, they have the right to use the property for the term, for the purposes declared. For the best systems. Now, if at some point they choose to assign their interest, and by the way, it's not, Vesper will not be the lessee. Woodson Energy, which is a newly created, separately, this company, the lessee, this is its only asset. It was created solely and exclusively for Groveland Township for this property. So right now it's got 0 assets. It's gonna borrow money and install this equipment, in which case it will then have significant assets, but not right now. So at some point, if it chooses to, or for whatever reason, either voluntarily or, God forbid, there's a default under one of its loans and the lender steps in, there's provisions in the lease for who gets to be an assignee. And there are criteria that essentially say that an assignee can only be, that is done without consent of the township. The equivalent size experience as Vesper. Now that's not exactly accurate right now because Woodson has essentially 0 assets. But at the time that the assignment would take place, without the consent of the township, it's got to be an equivalent entity. If for whatever reason it's seeking to assign either directly or through some lender that takes over after a foreclosure of a mortgage or some loan, and they want to assign it to some entity that doesn't meet the criteria of size or experience as Vesper, then at that point the township would have to consent to that in writing, and so you'll have a chance to review, well, who's the proposed assignee, do they have the wherewithal to continue the operations, are they going to decommission it, are they going to keep using it? At that point, there are state and federal regulations that get involved on how property and equipment like this are used and maintained or decommissioned, that so state law would, I think, trigger the involvement of the state at that point. So if your question was directed towards like the decommissioning process, that's not addressed in this lease. That would be, I think, addressed and directed by state law. So that doesn't need to necessarily be spelled out here in the lease.
In the first while that was drafted, that the planning commission, I believe there was a section in there about decommissioning.
Okay, well,
Which
yeah, so.
obviously we will still be addressing.
Well,
in
exactly,
going
right,
forward.
exactly. So either through the WIO that maybe we negotiate, or if nothing happens and they need to go to the state, the MPSC will determine for them. But either way, it's addressed by Act 233 and any other regulatory, either statute or regulations that address decommissioning issues for, interstate energy transmissions.
Okay, my next question. You mentioned this WIO. Is that in this lease somewhere?
No, there's a reference that the parties will continue to negotiate a development of a WIO in good faith.
Where is that at, please?
That was at the very end.
In the lease or in the option?
I think I saw it in the lease. Oh, no, maybe it's in the option. Again, I just got this end of the day myself. So it's in the option on page 14. And again, that makes sense because the option is
Page 14?
Yeah, right, the new section 16.18 of the,
That's not our 14. So it's 16,
well,
Page 13.
okay, 16 dot.
We don't have the markup, well.
oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Let's see.
It's, so so 16.18.
Yeah.
It's,
Good faith
it's,
negotiations, the parties agree that during the term, they will continue to negotiate and work together in good faith to agree on language related to a working incompatible ordinance.
that's exactly it, yes.
And that is all the language we need in order to ensure that that is going to happen.
That's the best we're gonna get. But I do believe that it's in their best interests to work towards Ohio.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's in their best interests to take this project to the MPSC and the vagaries of what the MPSC would impose, approve, and how long it would take. I mean, these guys are under certain timeframes, and I don't know how the MPSC operates or its own timeframe, but it takes over a year to get that done. So I think Vesper/Woodson is motivated to work in good faith towards Ohio, particularly because you guys have already done the heavy lifting, well, the PC did. And so at the risk of being overly optimistic, I think that there's good reason to be encouraged that the language that you've already, your planning commission has already worked over has, and been essentially approved by Vesper, won't be similarly received positively.
So this document that's before us today, what we're looking at today is the option.
No, so, yeah, it's a little tricky.
But
The option
is first.
The option, right, the option,
After.
the option comes with 4 exhibits, A, B, C, and D. And so exhibit A to the option is just the description of the property. Exhibit B is the ground lease, that's a big document. And so, your document is the option agreement comprised of various exhibits. And then exhibit C and D are the forms of the memorandums that get recorded with the Register of Deeds to tell the world, put them on notice, this property has this interest recorded, so, so the township can't go and sell it to somebody else. But, so the only important exhibit to the option is exhibit B, that's the lease.
When will what's the timing look like for a resolution on the mining agreement with reclamation?
That's a great question. Who knows? I honestly, and I don't mean to be glib, but I have not talked to Mr. Bass, I've not talked to his attorney. I don't know that they've dug into the expectations of Vesper yet. I don't know if his plans that were reached back in 2022, actually revised in 2022, have changed in any significant manner that might shrink his interests in mining and the extent to that on the township land. I just don't know. But I do know that Mr. Bass he's an excellent, he's a friend of the township for a long time, and I found him to be very forthright with says what he's gonna do and then does it. And he'll tell us quickly and promptly if he can either work within the confines of that agreement, or if there's something else that he might be able to work through with the township. And maybe there's some horse trading and other properties that the township has control over. I just speculated.
The first meeting is tomorrow at 1 to answer that, Keith. So, and I'll be honest, part of the reason this is even, came to work is Barry's willingness to make it work. I mean, by rights, he had the lease, he
Yeah.
could have told us, no, I'm taking my full time.
Right.
Barry's actually the one that came and, has been good to this township,
For a long time, right.
so.
So this document that's in front of us,
Is there still ongoing work, there could be potential changes to this?
Well, you know, maybe tweaking here and there, but for the most part, no. For the most part, the document you have here today, Vesper is seeking your up or down vote, hopefully up, because tomorrow, we're told, and the township's consultant on this has advised us that, and as reaffirmed by Vesper, that they've got a cutoff date by MISO that they had to start their application with, and Mr. Combs can help a lot more than I can, but they had to start their application with an investigation of this regulatory body to have it start its investigation on the location of this BEST project in Groveland Township, and it cost them money to start that process, and so efforts have been ongoing for other entities to look into the project here in the township, and they're expecting a finalized ground lease and option for this property, similar to what they've already had, what they got existing in the other, by tomorrow. And if they don't, then evidently Vesper/Woodson has to start the process all over again, and that'll set them back, I think, years. Couple years, and so if that happens, they're walking away from Groveland Township, from the township property, and they're gonna go back to their original site. So we are kind of under the gun.
Justin, could you talk about that for a minute, then move in?
Sure, so Justin Danaskis, Advances Consulting Development. So there's a regional association, acronym is MISO, and they're in charge of really coordinating all the infrastructure between almost like a 10-state region. And so if DTE is putting on power here and there needs to be power down south, they coordinate so that there's not too much demand on the grid, and how interconnections happen, like what this is being proposed with the battery selection. And so with all the interest in renewable energy in the grid and being tested with AI and all the demand, you can imagine this MISO's organization gets hit with a lot of different inquiries. And so they've been, over the years, evolving their system, and they're really now at a point where we're saying, well, put your money where your mouth is. You're saying you're doing these projects, prove to us, and you have to meet certain benchmarks, or else you have to kind of move with where you're at, or move on with the process. And that's basically where we're at. So this is a non-material change, given they're moving just to the north, essentially, along the same ITC corridor. And so if they're able to get this change into MISO by tomorrow, then they won't lose their spot in the queue, which would then give them option to continue to pursue this, or as Strasser said, if they didn't, I guess they would revert back to the original site, because they're not gonna lose their spot in line and cause them delays of years. And so that's how this system works. It's a very large conglomerate that coordinates all these projects. You can go to their site and just look on their map, and you'll see there's dozens of different projects that they're in control of within 100 miles of here easy. And so not all BEST battery systems, there's a number of them plotted in the area. And so that's why we're on this tight time frame, is to keep their queue essentially in the line. They're up against this deadline, or as they've stated, they would, I'm sure, move forward with their original site.
What happens, we asked this question of, what's the status of the other site? What happens to the other site if this is approved?
Essentially, we terminate the lease.
Did you have a lease on that one now, similar to this?
It's option, the lease the same, basically the exact same thing.
I think they have an option, right? I mean, you haven't committed to the lease yet, you're still in the option period.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're still in the option period with the other side. They would just notify the property owner, we're not electing our option, and we're terminating our contractual relationship, so they just move done.
I do have something else. Back in February, there's a letter that was written from Vesper Energy regarding the Woodson Energy Storage. And at the bottom, or in this letter, it stated that, I know that last year, the previous board tried to get Vesper to change locations. They really tried to do that, and So, back in February of this year, we got a letter from Vesper that stated that, I'll just read the words. Outreach was made to 4 to 5 owners of tracks along the transmission line in mid-2023. However, no responses were received, and upon closer look, the particular characteristics of these sites, referring to Groveland Township's Tech Park and so on, had fatal flaws for best development due to previous mining activity. So how do we reconcile what we're approaching here? Like, I mean, it says here that you couldn't move because it was, not a good site for best development because of mining activity, but yet we're going to offer our friend Barry Bass the option of mining this site, and then you guys are gonna be okay with putting this battery thing in something that has previous mining activity.
Well, can I just interrupt you, because that's not quite accurate, and I don't wanna have Mr. Combs answer something. So, the interest of Barry Bass is a paper interest right now, right? He's got the right to mine. I'm not aware that he's actually started mining there yet. So, he has a contractual right to take aggregate out of that area.
Yeah.
And what we don't know yet is what he wants to do, right? So my presumption is that Vesper is not going to tolerate and won't agree to any actual mining if they elect the option and start under the ground lease, because they're not gonna want mining activity going on, I don't think. At the same time, they're planning the development of the land. What might happen is, depending on the discussions with Mr. Bass, that during this 5-year period of time, if it works for Vesper, then there might be some opportunity for Mr. Bass to squeeze in some mining in the interim during those 5-year option years.
Okay.
And so maybe on some year 1, 2, 3, maybe, just guessing, he can mine, satisfy his expectations on the mining and reclamation agreement, and maybe get himself out of some of the reclamation issues, I don't know. And then work something else out with the township, presumably, that will satisfy him on his contractual rights at the 40 acres. But, so, if where you were headed is on the presumption that there was gonna be some mining tolerated during the time of the Vesper ground lease.
No, this is
No,
verbatim
that's not what I'm
from this
saying.
letter.
Okay, all right, well then I
The
misunderstood.
particular characteristics of these sites had fatal flaws for best development due to previous mining activity. So if Barry chooses that, and I'm pretty sure that was his plan, was to mine for a few years, how has that changed since February? I mean, if this says a fatal flaw for best development, are we risking a site? I mean, is this a risky site for you?
No, so we did already do, one of our biggest concerns was wetlands in that specific parcel. And the GIS systems, mapping systems that we had used in the past did show up as most of these areas as wetlands. However, we did actually complete with actual field work and people out there, we actually got a wetland delineation done on this new parcel. That came back this past Friday. And there is only 0.16 acres within the parcel that is identified as a wetland. As for everything else, we've looked at slope, we've looked at soils, we've looked at a lot of other things.
So that was the fatal flaws, potential for.
Potential for floodplains and wetlands, so, the wetland delineation definitely, solidified that we don't need to worry.
So what I'm hearing you saying is the letter that was addressed to us in February is no longer, you're not concerned about that on this particular property, that this lease or this option is being offered on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Did Keith have more questions? Have you seen this already?
No.
Okay. I have no idea if this is the right decision or not. This is a 60-page document. Our planning commission spent months trying to put together a 2 to 3 page ordinance, just an ordinance. This is a decades-long lease agreement. I have no idea if this is the right decision to make or not tonight. What I'm hearing is that we're not gonna work off of hypotheticals, and we're working on facts in front of us, and in this lease itself, we're working in good faith. The language is in here that we're working in good faith. I have no idea what setbacks might look like. There's no commitment to a while. They could do the same thing that they're potentially going to do with the original location. Again, I don't know if this is the right decision or not, but I have a lot of questions. We have no community agreement in this lease. I would think, if anything, if we're committing to a lease of this magnitude, there would be some benefit. Right now, I don't know what that is. What is the benefit of this?
As far as the community benefits,
At all? What is our benefit?
what we negotiated is what I said earlier, $100,000 a year for the township, $150,000.
So the lease itself? The lease of the land?
The lease of the land is $4,000 an acre, $5,000 if it goes to a brownfield.
But that's about it, right? So that's what, $150,000 a year?
Correct.
The taxes would be the same no matter what. So this 60-page, we have no community agreements, we have a fundamental concern with reclamation still.
What do you mean the taxes would be the same? I'm just-
Well, they're still in Holly. Either location is still gonna benefit Holly schools.
Oh, I'm
It's
sorry,
gonna-
I get you.
All of
That's
those
what I was
taxes, those numbers don't change no matter the
No.
location.
No. You're right.
So there's a very small percentage of money here that we're really making this decision on. Justin, you mentioned the, MISO, August 5th. Where was that? Cause I looked on their site today and the dates that I saw looked a little bit different, but I had a hard time really navigating it.
Sure, it's more when the application was submitted, their original application. So on J 3362, their permit or whatever it is, that's when it was originally submitted. So to stay on task and through the years-long process to initiate really studies, where we're
Sure.
at, is to initiate studies. So they're up against the end of their time frame when they originally submitted on the original site. So it's
Okay.
directly tied to that application.
So August 5th is basically their deadline, but nobody else's?
No, for getting their changes in correct, it's a rolling, you can submit an application today, tomorrow, whenever, and you're in the queue, and you're just going
Right.
through. And then it takes a certain amount of time, and then, hey, before we get to the next phase and start, where they start spending time, money, energy on the studies, they want to show that the applicant actually has control and is really moving forward. So that's why the agreement tonight and the option, the lease, they need to show control to MISO of this new location. So
Okay.
that MISO says, okay, it's a non-material change because it's close, and you can continue in your spot without losing the spotlight, if that makes sense.
Sure. So is tomorrow your hard deadline, or is tomorrow we would like to have the decision by tomorrow because we have a little window that we need to navigate work with? Because that's a really, really big question.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we do get it signed tomorrow.
Ideally though, that's ideally.
I mean, we will need it minimum signed by next week.
Okay, but that's a big, big piece of this puzzle for a
Right.
60-page document.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention is that, and I've talked to our attorney about it, but we could consider putting the community benefit agreements into the agreement itself. I'd have to talk to our attorney about it.
Okay. Well, and you were talking about, I know right now it's in good faith, were you still considering incorporating some YO?
Well-
Or were you hoping that would be like an addendum to a
No.
contractual agreement?
No, so I mean, it's good Mr. Holmes is here because he's telling me things that I didn't know about earlier today. And the discussion that I had with the attorney for several hours today, the language that was read about the good faith from WIO was as much as we were gonna get because the lease, well, that was in the option. Both the option and the lease are for interests in real property, right? the workable, incompatible ordinance is different, very different.
Right.
As is the community benefits agreement, which is a
Right. contract
and an enforceable contract. So if the township and Vesper sign the community benefits agreement, it's an enforceable contract. They typically are not integrated into interests in real property.
Yeah.
But if we're able to boil that in somehow, sure, that would be good. But that wasn't something that, was an option today, in the course of revising the,
Sure.
these documents.
Sure. Okay.
Henry, what is the latest you can have this signed? We have a board meeting next Monday night, just so we know. I mean, they kept telling us it's the 5th. What,
I mean, yeah, Monday night. We need it next week.
well, I said earlier, I apologize to this board that it is, it's a lot to take in.
I know, I totally get it, it's a long document.
I have no question about that. In point blank, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is probably one of the biggest decisions we'll ever make in this
Right.
township.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to say it.
well, I think it is one of the absolute biggest, and I actually had prepared, like, I was really just going to come in and say, I have just been handed this contract. I think the responsible thing to do is to read it before voting on it. And therefore, I'd like to make a motion to table this decision until the entire board can read the lease agreement, and we can bring it up at next Monday's board meeting. That is my motion.
I support it.
Janelle supported.
Laura, you wanna take a roll call?
Well,
Oh, one second.
Well, Elaine, are you sure about that? Are you positive that Monday would be okay?
well, either way, it's the motion's on the
It's
table.
Motion's on the table.
Okay.
Okay, Janelle Keller,
Yes.
Teresa Bills,
Or when I
Yes.
phrased it.
Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Keith Witherhold,
Yes.
Kevin Scramlin.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we table it until next Monday.
Thank you for being here and being able
Yeah,
to
thank
answer
you.
that question.
Now, when you said you could talk to your attorney and see if we can get that community benefits agreement in there, is that something we can get in there before Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little stronger language about the
Not
while.
before Monday, like, maybe like
Like this
Wednesday.
week.
Yeah.
This week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 1 hour. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, like the next day or two, because I literally have to read this, process it, and be able to discuss it.
Yeah, and it is really it's gonna be his decision. He's calling the shots on it. I'm not an attorney, so
Sure.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Okay.
And,
Thank you.
and for the benefit, I'll also contact Mr. Goodling, that's his name, Alan Goodling, and raise the same thing Henry mentioned, so we'll get an answer, I'm sure, he's very
Okay.
prompt, and I'm sure we'll get an answer by Wednesday.
Okay.
Before we move on to public comment, John, I know you and I have talked at length about this, but the board hasn't talked to you. How do you feel about it? I mean,
It's the best project overall. I feel pretty safe with it, with the renovations and technology and the compartmentalization of the cells and the different tactics they have to fight if an event did happen, which greatly reduces the runoff and all the exposures on it. I'm not very concerned with it at all. I'm much more concerned with somebody's EV in the garage than I am with this.
I just want the board to hear your opinion. At this time, I will open public comment again.
So that EV scares the crap out of me.
Well, Christine again, so since we can't trust this dude here, can we go on that MISO thing somehow and find out what the real date is, since this one can't be trusted either?
Well,
Like, could that guy help
What
us?
do you mean now?
Like the real date that needs to be?
My understanding is that date is specific to the person who applied, right? So Is that correct, Justin?
That's my understanding, our communication with MISO was based on when they applied, and was it like a
It's
uniform
around the V,
deadline
right?
for
It's like a
everyone?
group. Is it a
So
group, like
that's
when you guys, the
specific
date that you
to
guys
the
applied, like
Vesper,
in
to the
general?
Woodson
That's what I
Energy.
interpreted.
That's my understanding as of tonight. Like, it's not everybody's due deadline, it's
Well, can we
theirs.
find out what their
Like,
actual
if I
deadline
could,
is?
just the little bit, and please do not hold me to this, but the little bit that I investigated today was that it sounds like it's like the year, and maybe it's their fiscal year or a specific area of the year in 2023, number of different applicants applied, and they are up right now. From what, and just, you guys correct me, because again, it was trying to do some quick research. And I thought I read August 25th was like the hard deadline, but there was like a window in advance of that they really needed to have everything submitted, officially finalized by. So modifications couldn't happen after a specific date. Please don't hold me to that language. I'll deny it even though it's recorded. But from what it looks like, and you can get some information, there's a lot of, it looks like there's been a lot of presentations from them because there are projects that have been applied everywhere. Not here in Groveland, but all over. But that's where I found the best information, and it was a number of dates, and it was all based on application year, according to what I think.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Hi, I'm Melanie Nivell. Thank you for tabling this. That was really the only option we had, to be given this much information. Well, and you didn't even get it, whatever came 2 hours ago, none of you received. Being on a council and planning commission, if I ever got information like that hours before a meeting, I would table or tell them no. I would just vote no. So I just want to commend you for doing your due diligence. So thank you for doing that.
Go right ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
My name is Steve Reed. I'm just a little confused where this alternate site is. Could you explain that again, please?
Where the original site was?
No, where you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The township
On
land.
Grange Hall Road, on the south side of the road, so where we're putting the new fire department at, if you come out of that driveway and drive right straight across, it'll be right there.
What is that, the northeast, where Warden and
Yeah,
Grange
it's
Hall
right on
come
the
together,
corner
or
of
no?
Warden and Grange Hall.
North, what is that, southeast?
Yeah, southeast corner.
Kind of off by Georgia Carpet.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
It's this side, about 75.
Hi, Jim Kaminsky. I was wondering, given it's a ground lease, one, is this at market? Because I've seen like ground leases go for, albeit with infrastructure, go for like about $35,000, $40,000 a month, because I've worked in commercial real estate for a time, albeit a different kind. And also, what kind of safety protocols are written in the lease? So, like, given they have a gravel site, they should have, I mean, what's stopping them from building a bunker for the lithium batteries in case they fail? Hey, then the gravel dump's not good. I mean, we talked about the time frame, we talked about other aspects of the lease, but what can you assure us as residents that, hey, it goes above and beyond what's going on? Because this technology is still in its infancy still. It's only, what, a couple of years old. So I'm sure not all the regulations and all the studies have been done to know all the angles that have been, that will be presented to us in the future, what could happen, especially building such a large site. So what can you do to assure me as a resident that, hey, we're gonna be safe?
Well, that is by far our biggest concern, but the actual safety regulations will be in the wild, the ordinance.
But yeah, but in the lease, I mean, we could probably put more in the lease to say, hey, this is a residential area. We can write more into the terms. I mean, I've seen the leases where people say, hey, you can't sleep overnight in this building. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't put a flagpole up there. I mean, what are we doing? I'm not asking Vesper to go above and do backflips for us, but what are they doing to ensure our safety? And I haven't heard that tonight.
And like I say, most of that is gonna be in the ordinance. Tonight was simply about the option. And we will be working with Vesper diligently on the safety aspects of it. I promise you that. but most
Yeah,
applicants
do
would.
you know when we'll hear about it, or is it?
Well, as soon as this is, if it is approved, then we will be right back to the planning commission. And that's where a lot of those meat and potatoes decisions will be made at.
Can I just follow up on that? Okay, so if the ordinance hasn't been completely, drafted or adopted, would they, if you approve a contract prior to that, would they be considered grandfathered prior to that ordinance?
It's never been adopted by this board, it was just passed by the planning commission.
Okay, so would they have to adhere to it then if it's not an actual adopted ordinance?
No.
Anything that you put in there, if it's after the fact of you approving an agreement, you cannot hold them to that.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. If the planning commission, how do I want to say that? If the planning commission adopts a new WIO, then that will come to this board to be passed. And that's what Vesper will be held to.
After you've already signed a contract lease agreement without that in it.
Right, that's, and I
Yes.
think that's a concern, cause
Yes.
it doesn't, it just says, good faith, and that is, a concern I have as well, but
Yeah.
I think you kind of
That's
addressed that
why,
well.
I think what we discussed was, let's strengthen that language.
Yeah. And Will knows it's a concern, me and him had a long conversation about it today.
Absolutely, but let me just correct, my understanding of Act 233 and WIO, Vesper has to agree to the terms of WIO. So
Sure.
it's not something that the PC can just approve and enforce against Vesper. Vesper has to agree to the terms of the WIO, approved by the PC and then referred to the board. A CREO might be something that the board can pass, and then Vesper can agree, we're gonna abide by that, or no, we're not, and we're gonna go to the state. But we're focusing on the workable incompatibilities.
This is my public comment. In this lease, what would, I know the in good faith is in there, but let's say they didn't like the WIO that we put together.
Right.
Is there anything that would prevent them from still just going to the state and doing, whatever they needed to do? Is there anything currently in here that would prevent that?
Well, no, because right now, it's just a proposal to work in good faith
Right.
towards that ordinance.
Okay,
And,
that's okay, I just want to know.
yeah,
There's someone way in the back.
Yeah, I just, pinpointed, I just wanted to follow up on a question Teresa asked, forgive me if I missed the answer, but, if Woodson or whoever, doesn't get any money, whatever, money fails, if they default, is there gonna be language in there that says who's responsible for the cleanup, so that we don't get stuck with it?
there is, yeah,
Definitely?
yes,
Okay.
there is.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you. I've heard Mr. Hassler say, this is kind of just more a comment as I'm thinking. Mr. Hassler say a few times that Woodson doesn't have any assets, they're a brand new company. So they're signing a lease with us. And we're thinking that they're just gonna be able to pay, a couple million in taxes a year, community guarantees, options, lease payments. It just makes me think, should we have other people signing it? Should Vesper, sorry,
No,
and one more thing.
Okay.
Only because we've known as we've been going through this for the past year, and some people here have uncovered some stuff about Vesper and maybe their lack of payment and switching businesses and switching, names and all that fun stuff as businesses do. So it just makes me a little nervous in how I think about things, thinking, is that really, maybe we could cover ourselves a little better there. And who's responsible for paying these payments if they don't have any money? That'd be like me saying, I'm gonna lease with that, I'm not gonna pay that.
You're not,
I'm done.
I'll cut you off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's all right.
you're-
Thank you.
That's an excellent point, and I spoke to the lawyer today about that at length. And, cause I would prefer that Vesper sign on as a co-obligor on this. And, we were round and round on that, and he said, no, that's not something that we're prepared to do now. But, you know, we're gonna circle back to that, because, I mean, that's a very valid point. I mean, the obligor on this document is an entity that is brand new, with no assets. I mean, now, I don't know whether the application, was the application taken up by Vesper? Because, you know, there's a certain inertia that is created by spending hundreds of thousands of dollars already in anticipation of a project like this, that one would think they're not gonna do it and then just put up a phantom entity without any capitalization or intent to do anything. So, I mean, while that's an excellent point in you know, contract enforcement, I think as a practical matter, it's like not an issue to worry about, but I think that's a bridge we need to think about, so. It's something to discuss with the family.
The site at East Holly Road, I know, well, I believe, there was a zoning, would have to be a zoning change if you did it appropriately from what, farmland to whatever this would be. That probably is not true with this other site because it's more industrialized. I don't know. But say Public Act 233 gets rescinded in the next couple of years, that's what took away the power of this body to make our own decisions and gave it to the state. But if that gets rescinded, that wouldn't affect anything as far as the lease that's already gone through. Is that correct?
Correct. No, that's 100% correct.
And that doesn't, I mean, if someone else came in right now to that property, not having anything to do with this, but what is it zoned now? Is it zoned
The property
industrial?
up here,
Well, up here, yeah.
the
what is up
township
here?
property,
What is that?
I believe it's light industrial.
I think so.
Yep.
The one you're going to put it on, the
Correct.
gravel. The other one was not. What
No,
was-
it
What
was-
was
it
it?
was
agricultural, rural farm.
I was gonna say rural farm.
Rural farm,
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting.
Good.
And Craig Smith in Groveland. So I see a lot of moving parts in there, and one of the things that Will said is that that really struck me was something was kind of fuzzy. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So some parts of the contract there, I believe, again, the word was fuzzy. And in good faith, you know, the good faith was a handshake in the old days. Unfortunately, as all we can work on is history. Back in 2011, Obama subsidized Solyndra for $500 million or something, $288 million. And it went bankrupt in no time at all. Government subsidized, it wasn't privately subsidized, which is what I'm assuming that Woodson's looking to do, is do a private through the banks, whatever, instead of the government. With that being said, with the other moving parts is the mining, if Barry, is that his name? Bonds?
Yeah.
Barry Bonds or whatever his name.
Bedrock.
If he decides to, football player, if he decides to mine, if he goes down deep enough, he's in close to the aquifer, and then we gotta worry about the wells again.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Well, all good points, but that issue is highly sensitive to Vesper for the presence of water, so that's something that needs to be discussed with Mr. Bass, and will be.
But you've only got a week.
Well,
Kind
no,
of.
not really. I mean, the option will address that condition, and they're prepared to go forward with that. So they're gonna sign on to that, assuming we work all this out and the board approves it. They'll sign on to that option with that provision about Bedrock's, you know, interests. It'll preserve their space in the MISO line. And then at that point, we're either gonna work out maybe some modification language by between the parties during the option period, or not.
Again, a lot of moving parts between now
Yeah.
and next week or even
Well,
tomorrow or
but again,
anything else.
that won't, any concerns over what to do with Mr. Bass, won't be resolved by the end of
But
next
doesn't
week.
he need to know that, cause couldn't that potentially affect the wetlands? If he mined it?
Well, it absolutely could, and for that reason, they probably won't, if Barry Bass, Public Records Bass decides that they absolutely will not step off their reclamation agreement, Vesper's gonna say, we're done.
But we need that in this agreement.
No, we need, there's a provision in here that is conditioning this, option agreement on Barry Bass's interest.
Okay.
And Vesper knows that, and if it turns out, and so on an ongoing basis, Vesper is gonna be analyzing, working with and discussing with Mr. Bass, his interest, and if it turns out after all the discussions and all the negotiations that he will not modify his interest in the township property in mining to the satisfaction of Vesper, that they conclude, look, he's gonna mine down to a level that's gonna hit water or do something, we are not gonna exercise this option and we're gonna walk away. I mean, at that point, I suppose they're not gonna terminate their interest with the other property until they know what Barry Bass is gonna do.
But I thought you had to move it through MISO. So you'll have potentially two sites to connect to, is that?
Well, we wouldn't resubmit sites with MISO if we don't get approval. Does that make sense?
Wait, can you say that louder, please? Yeah, this is important.
Yeah, so we essentially, we wouldn't relocate sites with the MISO submittal. We wouldn't.
So you are in queue at both places, even though you don't have a lease at the private property,
We only have one spot.
which is at the mining property.
No, it's the first one.
It's one spot for which property?
For,
The original.
well, yeah, right
Well,
now,
let him answer,
right
please.
now it is the original, yes.
For the original.
And we
But
are-
earlier in the meeting, I don't know who said, but you don't have a lease with that
We do
property?
have a lease.
We do.
They do have a
We do.
lease. How long is your lease for?
I have to double check. I think 4 years.
It's a 4-year
But it
lease.
was signed.
In 23?
Yes.
So, okay, so let's just say you don't come up in your queue before your lease is done. What's the plan?
We don't come in, can you, wait, what do you mean by that?
That's the question.
If you're in the queue and you don't know when you're gonna be called upon in that, right? You're just in this queue waiting to get online, right, on the ITC, is that correct?
It's generally kind of how it works,
Okay,
yes.
your lease is up in 2 years, right?
Mhm.
What if you don't come up in your queue to get
Yeah,
online?
we would get an extension with that. Amend the original agreement and get an extension with said landowner.
What about the queue?
Well, we would just continue to move up.
Okay, so the landowner is open to you,
Yes, exactly.
revising that? Okay. Where do we send our, concerns or suggestions to?
You can send them right to me.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
What about the wetlands? You said on the other side there's an acre and whatever, acre and a quarter is wetlands. The original site's got way more wetlands than that site. So why are they putting it on that site with a green field and next to a school? That's what I don't understand.
We had a wetland delineation on both sides. And both of them are big enough for the project.
So you're gonna shove it up right in my backyard?
Are you-
Cause I'm 300 feet behind this place.
And you are located near what place? The-
I'm on Township. I'm not in this township, I'm in
The original?
Springfield Township.
Okay.
The original, so.
I mean, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the layout is now. I don't know if I have seen a layout for it yet.
Do you know if any wetlands were in the Tucker site?
Yes, there are.
There were a few.
How many acres of wetland? I know it's
Oh,
1.6.
I don't.
Yeah, what
You
is?
don't
In my head, I can look.
Oh, you don't, okay.
resolution name, so.
I would say, but I wanna say there's like 7.65, but don't hold me.
Okay,
It's something like
okay,
that.
but like around the 7-ish, okay.
Go ahead.
In this new lease, I'm sorry, Chris Groveland, in this new lease, is there wording in the new lease that would say that the previous agreement lease would be null and void? So that they could not have two sites?
We don't have that here now. I don't know that.
It could be a concern.
I don't
It should
know.
be a concern.
Yeah, sure.
Cues on those properties.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll discuss
Sorry,
that.
I had to throw that out there.
We don't know. We don't know.
Well, that's why I'm asking the guy that knows.
Yeah, there should be wording to null and void the original lease agreement.
Anybody else?
I do have one more question, I'm sorry, I'm not sure you can answer this. Teresa mentioned the maintenance and the lifelong of lithium battery systems. Who's gonna be regulating, reviewing those battery systems, and how often will that happen?
Henry, you wanna take that?
Yeah, I mean, we have operation staff, I honestly have no idea, but I can get back to you on that.
Is it gonna be part of this lease agreement that there's going to be a maintenance review every 2 years or whatever during the 40 years to say that these systems are still working properly and not leaking?
That's in the law.
Yeah,
It's
that would be.
all
You guys, I know, but you guys are talking.
It's in the ordinance, it's all spelled out, the maintenance requirements, performance expectations.
But have they agreed to that in this lease?
No.
And that's my problem, is that they haven't agreed to it.
Well, no, Vesper did in concept agree with all of that in the Iowa, but it just hasn't been approved yet by the board.
Okay.
And so that's why I'm kind of optimistic that it'll get passed now with all the provisions you're concerned about.
And it's still all in Barry's hands.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
Is Barry gonna be coming to any of these meetings?
I don't know.
Or a water, some type of water source.
And no, I don't live by either one of these properties, so.
One at a time. Who's next? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I just have a question. Are they allowed to do any improvements or do anything to the property under the option before the lease is signed?
They wouldn't be able to do anything as far as construction, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Until they've actually, entered into the lease agreement.
Right, but they do have feasibility study, right, so they can go on the property and look around and see if it's suitable, they just can't start building it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Carrie?
I just wanna say thank you, for the not putting the cart before the horse again, especially rushing to make a decision on a legal document that you just received today, if I understand, or even again, our lawyer is only getting it last minute. Then in a meeting, it felt very deja vu. I really do appreciate your wisdom and not wanting to rush and take time. It seems like it's business as usual. Feel sorry for Mr. Collins, since it seems like you're being thrown into the fire because the faces we've seen in the past would have and should have had some answers for us tonight based on these questions that we've asked them in the past. You kind of gave us some of the similar answers that they had. I don't know, I just got put on this project, was one we had before, or I don't know, that's for a different department. What I'm wondering fully is how the decommissioning will be processed. I love that you pointed out that Will Hostler, our lawyer, said it's fuzzy in the contract that you'd be voting on. Who's liable if there's an actual thermal runaway in our water? There's an aquifer nearby. I hope somebody in here can speak to it before because my 3 minutes might get up, but it's right there on the property. You can find it online. Woodson Energy will be an LLC. Can they file bankruptcy and leave the township in a lurch because Vesper will not be a part of it anymore? How long has Vesper been in the queue with MISO was kind of answered, but I think that needs a deeper dive. Because it seems like they said we only have till tomorrow. Now tonight they're saying, well, we got next week, or maybe even a little longer. There's no clarity. It's business as usual. Then, I don't know what this note is, sorry, I took a lot of notes. I know that you said a fatal flaw was the wetlands, I brought up the aquifer, but another one of your company employees said it would cost more to run the line over there. We've been asked to have one-on-one discussions with them, and I have with 2 different of your employees, and that's what she said to me. They're putting millions, 250 to 350 million into the project because they expect to receive a lot more back. They're a huge business. We better make sure we're not getting a drop in the bucket. If, who's gonna, I mean, you guys, I feel so bad for your position right now. The reality of it is, I mean, I could be sitting in your chair, I mean, I'm not saying I will or could, I'm just saying. So I think about it that way, and you guys just have so much more you need to know. And I appreciate all the work you've done on it, but my gosh, thank you again for tonight and for your wisdom. And I would ask that you would establish a subcommittee, which includes a certain number of residents to work on this project that could be interviewed. I volunteer in one of them. I also would ask that you'd review our letters from last August and all the community comments and concerns from prior meetings. And then I have other questions I can address to Kevin or the board later. What I want to read you, and it's for the legal aspect, just quick, I did a quick little Google search. If a township doesn't pass a workable ordinance but a lease agreement is legally binding, the implications can be complex and potentially lead to legal disputes. Be careful. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Brooks, Groveland Township. 4,000 an acre is too cheap. You're giving it away. You're freaking giving it away. Yeah, everybody around me is saying the same thing. Giving it away. And they know it, and they're gonna leave. They're gonna sell it to someone else, Woodson to someone else, and leave, and they have nothing to do with it. Vesper has to be in that contract too as a secondary.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I just want to voice my concerns about the environmental factors in the runoff if there is a accident or something. I just did a quick Google search on pest systems, and there's been 67 incidences worldwide. And the last one was in 2023, and they had a fire that burned for 3 days. I'm just concerned about the fires, the damage to our environment, the parks the parks that we have around here, safety for our children, our community.
Thank you.
Oh, and I have another question. Is this board meeting next week open to the public?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Same time, 7 o'clock.
Okay.
They're always open to the public.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I guess I have a question. We don't know you. We know Emmanuel and the other girl we sent out to the fields to dig solar panels. Who are you and why are you
Yeah,
here now?
sorry, I haven't introduced myself. My name's Henry. EJ's who you're talking about, yeah, he couldn't make it today. And Jessica is also busy. She's kind of just taking a step
I
off
see
this
they
project.
relocated her to the fields, put her in a safety vest, and now she's digging solar panels or whatever, and I found her LinkedIn.
What? Okay. Well, she's just kind of taking a step off this project a
Yeah.
little bit. But yeah, my name's Henry. I'm a developer at Vesper Energy, and I've been in contact with you guys for about 6 months, excuse me. And yeah, I come from a background in energy, and I've been in the field for a couple of years now. So nice to meet you guys.
Anyone else? All right, well, we will table it until next Monday and work on it every minute until then, I'm sure.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.